Yeah, something going on. All right. Hello, traders.
Let's test that. You're not allergic to me. Are you? No, you're good. Okay. Hi.
That was uncomfortable. Anyway,
Welcome
back. Everything's late. Nobody dies. Episode 9. 9. We're almost into double digits on this.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. They said that we were crazy for doing it.
And we are.
I think they were.
They were correct. They just said we're crazy.
So I'm kind of taking feedback from the people that watch the show, and they kind of like the loose conversational style as opposed to something that's more formatted. So, we can throw out a couple topics now and then.
Yeah.
One thing I've been thinking about is how can we incorporate books into it? Because you've got a massive collection, some great books. I've got a few.
Oh, like
okay
personal
books.
stuff? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You show off some of our stuff once in a while.
Yeah. I got like...
By stuff, I mean comic books.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Changed everything right there.
Oh, jeez, man. Willy's Wonderland again. OnlyFans.
Yeah. So, can you imagine if Stan Lee had an OnlyFans? Stan Lee's OnlyFans.
Who wants to shower with Stan? OnlyFans, I invented that. So we were sitting in an office in the bullpen, and I was like, OnlyFans matter. Wait a minute.
There's something there.
One day we're going to have a web that goes worldwide with information on it. Yes.
It's like a spider web. Spider web with a man in it. Like a Spider-Man. So, yeah.
Oh, man. This is the looseness that they... Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
We really don't. I mean, I don't drink at all, but we don't drink before this.
You speak for yourself. I mean, I'm drinking Gatorade.
Yeah.
Which we need a sponsor, by the way. Hi, Gatorade. It looks like washer fluid, but it's like some of the only sugar-free Gatorade I can find. So whatever. Yeah. At least my inner transmission won't leak.
There you go.
So, what are we talking about today? Anything in particular?
We had kind of hit on last week. We were talking about for a moment there the urban legends of comic books. You were talking about the Jack Kirby thing, beating up Nazis and and Marvel's offices. And I've always loved those stories. And you come across them now and then, and that's one that I had heard quite a few times. Actually.
Right. Yeah.
Like that one's a pretty big one.
Yeah, I love that one.
That and then the stories of Jim Lee. Like Jim Lee was not intended to be part of the Image 9 in the beginning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had like everybody but Jim Lee. And the way I've heard the story is Todd McFarlane was like, but if we could get Jim Lee, that would be so big. And yeah. So he kind of hinted that he had Jim Lee on board when he went to everybody else.
Okay.
And
so he kind of worked around it a little bit.
Yeah. And then once he had everybody else on board, he went to Jim Lee. He's like, well, we got everybody. We even got Larry Hama. And Jim Lee was like, if you got Larry Hama, I'm in. So.
Jeez. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's an urban legend comic related Doctor Strange movie. Did you ever see Dr. Mordred? It's an old like 80s movie from Full Moon.
Yeah.
With Jeffrey Combs as a thinly veiled Doctor Strange character. Who lives in a brownstone and like does magic and has his inner sanctum sanctorum blah 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 thing, but with a really neat window about just all this cool stuff. So they did a movie about that, and all the rumors were, oh well, Charles Band got the rights to this and that, and blah blah blah, and then he let them lapse, and then they already had the script and everything. And I was just watching a thing about it the other day, and it turns out none of that is true. Absolutely none of that is true. It's actually, they did I think Dr. Mordred
was
a Kirby character that he created. and then they had the rights to an original Kirby character, which was such a Doctor Strange ripoff. It was insane. And they bought the rights to that, and then changed it to Mordred.
All right.
And so, yeah, it was, I don't know, it was weird, but it was they never actually had the rights to that. But if you see Doctor, yeah, it is Dr. Mordred. Yeah, if you see that, it's such a Doctor Strange movie. It is so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I'm really disappointed that the Peter Hooton TV's Doctor Strange didn't show up in the Multiverse of Madness. I was
that would be
pissed
cool.
about that. I was
That would be
not
cool.
happy about that.
I didn't
Not
even think
happy.
about that.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I really wanted it because he's in this crappy 80s horror movie called Night Killer.
Oh, I love Night Killer. I'm a sucker for.
You've seen Night Killer?
Yeah, I've
With
seen
the
Night
bad
Killer.
Freddy glove and everything? And oh my god, I love that movie.
I think I saw
that
that
one?
on a double billing with Sorceresses. And Sorceress, I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It's like a sword and sorcery
No.
about two twin sorceresses, and it just gave the movie makers a reason to have two attractive young blonde women to run around with no clothes on. That was the premise of the movie. And
Why have I not seen this?
it was great. It was great. It was like, and it's hard to find, but about halfway through the movie, the soundtrack stopped, and the movie was so bad that the people in the theater were making up words for the characters on the screen. And I was like 14 years old at the time. This
sounds
was like the
awesome.
greatest thing
That
in my
sounds
entire
great.
life. It was fantastic.
No, that's God. Night Killer. I think 5 other people, including 2 people that were in Night Killer, have seen Night Killer. God, that was terrible. I love it. Yeah, that's like a favorite around the store. Oh, we all love that. We've all seen like the highlights when he's in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
It's like take your pants off. My pants, my pants. When he talks like that, I don't know why he talks like that, but God, it would have been great to see him pop up in there, wouldn't it?
That would be cool.
And oh God, and Jeffrey Combs, the knockoff movie,
Yeah.
the Dr. Mordred, that would be great.
Missed opportunities.
I know, right?
I mean, it would be really
Disney,
cool.
call me.
Like, one thing that DC did that I thought was really cool when they did their Arrowverse crossover, their Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. Like, they had all of those.
Crisis on Infinite Stations.
Yeah. But they had as many of those type of references in there as they could. They had Brandon Routh in as Superman.
And Adam, right?
And Adam.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which I thought was really cool.
that's kind of neat. Yeah.
Like that movie, Superman Returns. I love that film. That's one of my favorite Supermans.
I don't know if God, I shouldn't say anything about this movie. What's his name? Played Luther.
Bad.
Bad.
Isn't that Spacey?
Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say I don't know if he plays a convincing bad guy. he's such a terrible dude. Oh my God, he's terrible. Man. Yeah, he plays a really good bad guy somehow.
Yeah.
Kind of like I was watching Freaks and Geeks, and James Franco plays a really good jerk who doesn't respect women. It's weird. Yeah.
Who would have thought?
I know, right? So yeah, the Image thing, I had absolutely no idea. I thought he was just on board. Jim Lee was on board just like right away.
No. He was the last one. There was not going to be an Image without Jim Lee. I mean, because at that point, you had McFarlane and
Valentino,
Liefeld.
right?
Yeah,
And then Valentino.
but Liefeld and McFarlane were the two.
They were the 2 big ones.
They
I
were the
guess.
big ones,
Yeah,
for sure, and mostly because they were hot young talent. Jim Lee was the elder statesman. Like he was. That was
I mean,
the
he was
era
he was in
of
his
Jim
this,
Lee.
what, late 20s at that point.
Yeah, late 20s,
Yeah.
early 30s.
Yeah,
But he would have been, because you weren't getting any of the franchise guys.
right.
Like that wasn't going to happen. Perez wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
so you.
Except to cross gen.
I don't think. Well, that was because of Image, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when they saw that
that was kind of an answer.
yeah, when these upstarts could do it, well, maybe I'm not tied
yeah.
to DC or Marvel or whatever.
That's so changed. That just changed the whole industry.
It did. It gave a lot more control to these creators to be able to say, I'll create for you. Like, and that's how it is nowadays, right? With Tinian and and Cates and all these guys, they can now say, I'm a star. I can create for you.
Yep.
But I want to be able to create for myself as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like it kind of almost gave legitimacy to indie stuff too. I mean, I don't.
For sure.
Again, you start talking about Image. Is it indie? Is it not? Is it what does it become? It's a huge corporate thing now. Of course it is. But everything starts indie.
Right.
Everything starts indie. But until then, you had Caliber. You had like The Crow. You had like The Tick, Turtles, stuff like that. But they were not. Mirage was a company for the Turtles. New England Comics was a company for the Tick. Caliber was essentially for the Crow and all kinds of like gothy horror stuff like that. You had North Star that was the splatter and the over-the-top horror stuff, with Faust and, Splatter, literally Splatter, that book. Slash, a lot of that stuff. But they weren't really like, okay, this is a company, bring something to us, we'll look at it and publish it, and you can own it.
Right.
It was just like, there were little niche things, and people would almost, people would kind of laugh at New England Comics when they started the Tick. Like, yeah, this is done. This is not going to be anything. That's, yeah. Ended up being a slight hit. But yeah, I think it kind of gave, again, legitimacy to that and said, yeah, you know what, if you've got something that you want to do, you don't have to have other people tell you how to do it. Just come on board and do it.
It's really interesting that it really, because it was Image that did that. Mm-hmm. They weren't the first.
Yeah.
I mean, Valiant had some fairly decent talent.
Yeah, they did.
Before
they
that.
Did.
That went on to much better things.
Yeah.
Tops had Kirby before Image.
Yeah, they did.
Like Kirby, the King.
Yeah.
So I often look back at that, and I've seen the documentaries and stuff and interviews, and it's really hard to kind of pin down what it was about Image.
It was almost like the right place, the right time, the right
Absolutely.
Everything, man. Because they weren't like mega superstar rock star creators until then.
Right.
I mean, you didn't have, you had your Steranko, and he wasn't really a rock star. He was more of a spy.
Very true.
You had Frank Miller, who was Frank Miller, whatever. But I mean, you didn't have until you had McFarlane and Larson and Liefeld and Lee and those guys. You didn't have like those really rock star type things going on.
Yeah, because if you look, you look back on old interviews of Stan Lee, like he was on the Tonight Show, and he was on Dick Cavett, and like he was in these high profile areas, but he was
almost a mascot.
Yeah, it was like this. Here's Stan Lee. He does this fun little funny book thing.
Yeah.
And then that all changed really with Liefeld.
Yeah.
Because when Liefeld hit, it was there's a 16-year-old kid, and he's dynamic and he's energetic and he's doing all these 3 million print comic books.
And you get a Levi's commercial, and then you get talk
and you
shows,
get thrown on
MTV.
MTV
and all that kind of stuff.
But so I think he's the one that he was the first rock star.
I would agree with that.
I think that people looked at that and they were like, but do you see what McFarlane's doing? Like his art style? Because he was better than Liefeld back then.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Probably still is.
Still is. I mean, just my opinion.
And I'm a huge Liefeld fan, but yeah,
Yeah.
Todd is a much more talented artist.
Yeah. I mean, they both have some anatomy problems. Not them, but their drawings. I mean, they look like, yeah, they look like people. They're okay.
And then,
but
I mean,
their actual drawings.
all
are,
of those artists from Image, the early Image. I mean, if you look back, they had personality too, and that
Yeah.
helped drive those two specifically.
Yeah.
Because there was much more talented artists and certainly more talented writers
Mm-hmm.
at Image than either of those two guys. In my
Well, I
opinion.
mean, you know, and you had, I mean, Larry Stroman came in and did stuff. I loved his stuff.
Right.
And you had Alan Moore came over and started writing.
Right.
You know,
Well,
wrote some Spawn stuff.
I
Neil
think-
Gaiman and,
Yeah.
Grant Morrison, all those guys came in and started writing.
I really think that Larry Hama is one of the best comic book writers, script writers that there's ever been. Like he's in my top five for sure.
He's like, he's insanely consistent.
Right.
And that, I mean, if artists are consistent, I like to see a little bit of an evolution of style, sometimes, but writers being consistent, I think, is more important. I mean, because, you can get to be a better writer, but you still need that consistency where it's like, this is how I write, this is what I do. Artists, I think, can almost, I'm not saying one is harder than the other or more important than the other, but I mean, I'm saying artists, it's a visual thing, so people can look at it and go, oh, that's their art, and they can just kind of keep that the same.
Right.
Well,
and they're allowed to. They're
Yeah.
allowed to much more than a writer is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I like to see a little bit of evolution in the art. Sometimes that evolution is not fantastic. Like Chris Bachalo, I like his stuff, but sometimes it's just like, I like his stuff, his earlier stuff better. But I have a hard time because I don't know what I'm looking at sometimes. I have no idea what I'm
Right.
looking at sometimes.
Like it gets too busy.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's like, is that an arm? Is that a car? I don't know what this is.
And I actually feel the same way about McFarlane stuff.
Yeah.
I
can
think
always-
a lot of his stuff gets real busy. At
I can
times
always
for
tell
me.
what I'm looking at, though, with McFarlane. I can always tell what it is. And he gets way too busy sometimes, yes, but I can always tell what it is. Yeah.
But it's real interesting if you look in terms of our big writers today, people like Tinian and Cates. I think they're both going through right now a real kind of stagnant spot in their career, where they're still putting out good quality stuff, but they're not doing that evolving, right? They're not moving on
Yeah.
to what could be the next bigger thing.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think a lot of that is, when Tinian will do something and it'll get super, super popular, he can't quit. Like, he can't stop doing something
Right.
that's killing the children right now.
Right.
He can't stop doing House of Slaughter. He can't stop, with these things that he's like. He has to keep going with them, because otherwise, it's like when you get a publisher and it's like, this is selling, they're going to push you. It doesn't matter if it's a creator owned. Doesn't matter if you're a contract player or it doesn't
Right.
it doesn't even matter. Wow, that was 1920s Hollywood. Did you hear that? Sorry, it doesn't matter if you're a contract player with that picture.
You belong to MGM.
You belong to MGM. Yes, you do. Yeah, so it's kind of, it's. I feel like they're pushing them to go, and that's maybe why they're getting a little stagnant with things.
Right.
But I mean, Cates, people are, there are people that actually don't like the New Hope book. They don't like the writing on it, but they're still buying it because it's Donny Cates writing the Hulk, and they're like, well, something big is going to happen, or they love Ryan's art.
Well, and honestly, that's getting into more of the and we're seeing that slow down because I think that's getting more into the bro collectors picking that up because it's Donny Cates. And they're
Yeah.
like, if something big happens, I'm going to make $1 million.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And because there's going to be a new character every 4 or 5 issues, because
Right.
that's just what he does, man.
Yeah.
That's what he does. Issue 6 had a new character. Now they got the big Thor fight. And then after that, I'm sure there'll be 2 issues before there's another big major character. And we'll forget all about the character that he just introduced in 6.
Right. And then he'll have to kill that character off in issue 12.
And then bring him back in a Venom event.
Right.
Yeah. A Venom event. I'm still working on that.
I used to really like Venomins. They were so refreshing.
It's cheaper to send money than PayPal.
Venom, another urban legend. Carnage was Maximum Carnage was originally meant to be an event where Carnage was out to steal the Venom symbiote.
Oh yeah, and he had like a fake suit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading about that.
But Venom was so popular as an anti-hero, they couldn't let it evolve into this, because Venom is ultimately evil.
Yeah.
They couldn't let it evolve to that because people like Venom too much.
Right. Yeah, I was just reading about that. NYX. Have you heard about that one?
I don't read that.
Not the Dynamite one, the Marvel one.
I didn't read that either.
Where X-23 was first introduced.
Right.
That one, Brian Wood actually originally came up with that. And took it to Quesada. And he wrote all this stuff, and he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, this is fine," blah blah blah. He was hired to do it. And then Quesada came in and was like, "Yeah, but I want to go a different direction." And then ended up writing it himself. And the scripts that Brian Wood had already written for that ended up at Demo. Have you ever read that? When you'll notice in Demo, the first I think 6 or 7 issues of that actually read just like the X-Men. There's superpowers, there's this and that, it's like kind of a dirty street level, almost underground X-Men kind of story. And then almost toward the end of that series, it just flips to no powers. And that's because he used his original scripts for NYX for that.
Huh.
And that I have on good authority. But Quesada, I guess Quesada gets credit for creating X-23 anyway.
Yeah. I'm not really familiar with any of that. I don't follow a lot of the X-Men.
That was a great series though, NYX. It was weird though. There was a little bit of like, oh man, okay, should we be doing this? Because it was I guess like a, what do they call them, PSR, like parental,
right?
Suggested look out for the things, there's content or I don't know, something, whatever it was. I think it was PSR is what they used to be. Parents strongly recommended, I think is what that was. But yeah, so X-23 actually, and this is kind of icky when you think about it, X-23 started out to be like a teenage prostitute that cut herself. That was her thing. Yeah,
that's pretty dark.
That's very dark book. For a Marvel book, man. So yeah,
for a late
that's what she
90s
did.
Marvel book.
Yeah, and that was like her thing. She was like in her late teens. She was making money as a prostitute, and she would get all the like weird dudes that were into weird stuff, and like she would cut herself when she was doing her job. I don't feel like that would fly right now.
Yeah, probably not.
That may be why they kind of changed her up a little bit.
That is not a mouse-friendly story.
No, that is not mouse-friendly at all.
There was a large period, and it's really all my wife's fault, that my dark years when I didn't collect.
I'm going to get anything that is hurtable out of the way. Let's see.
It probably is my fault.
that pot of scalding water. We can move that over.
So I went from
Turn the deep fryer off. Wait. Okay.
but about 96, 97, all the way up till about 2019. There was about a good 20 years there I didn't read,
Oh, wow.
didn't buy, didn't do anything. So
Yeah. Then you missed all that stuff.
yeah, all the NYX,
Wait, how is that my fault?
because you had me spending money on whatever it is that we had to do to raise a family.
Well, we'll discuss later.
Okay. There,
But
right.
there was so we were living in Illinois at the time, and they once a year would have this street festival, and the local comic shop would bring the books out and sell 50-cent comic books, or you could fill up a short box for like $50 or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, I ended up just going through and just pulling a bunch of stuff, and like really, and it was all that early 2000 stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like that's where my Ultimate Fallout 4s came from. Like I did end up with a lot of good stuff doing that.
Well, and that's also when Marvel was just, they're like, oh, okay, do whatever you want. We don't just do something.
That was kind of a shotgun period for
It
them.
was, and that
For
you know,
sure.
that was almost kind of like it was almost like the early '60s. When they just brought people in and they're like, okay, fine, do a Spider-Man. Okay, do 4 fantastic people. Okay, we don't care, just do
Right.
something. We gotta, compete with DC with their
But
superhero stuff.
it was a complete different mindset though, because back in the early 60s they were like, we're a brand new company, just throw whatever you got out there and let's see what
Yeah.
sticks.
And in the 2000s, early 2000s and late 90s, they were like, we're a bankrupt company, so put
Right.
whatever you got out there.
Right.
That's the when Bendis started working there. Did you ever hear that story about when he started working there? He was, and this, I guess, the urban legend with this would be that Marvel was doing just fine, and everybody thought they were doing great. Because they had this big boom in the 90s and
Right.
selling tons of books and stuff, and you're starting to get some movies out there. But the thing that people don't understand is they had licensed out all the properties for those movies. Only thing they had left was Iron Man and Avengers, which was not popular at all.
Right. Well, and they had to
Yeah.
give away X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
They held on to Spider-Man a little bit longer, but they had to give away X-Men in order to get money to keep the company afloat.
Right.
It wasn't we're doing so well, let's get into movies. It
Mm-hmm.
was we're failing. Let's see if we can pawn this off on Fox.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess so. What happened here is Bendis was all excited. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to work for Marvel. This is awesome. This is great. I've been toiling in the trenches, doing these little books and these little indie things, and Torso and Jinx and all that kind of stuff." And he was, I think at that point, he was still working for the Cleveland paper. I think so. It feels like it, because he was like, drawing strips and stuff for the, I think, the Plain Dealer, I think, something like that. But anyway, so he gets all excited. He goes to New York. He's like, yes, man, yes, I'm going to work for Marvel. And he walked in, and he walked into the main office, and there were a bunch of filing cabinets and like furniture and computers and all kinds of crap. And he's like, well, what's going on here? It's like, why is all this stuff sitting? He's like, oh yeah, we're selling all that stuff. We're trying to get some money. And he's like, this is Marvel. What do you mean you're selling your office equipment? And yeah, they just laid a bunch of people off. They got office equipment they're trying to get rid of, trying to get any sort of money. It's like a fire sale at Marvel. And that's why you got Ultimate Spider-Man. That's why you got Powers. Well, that was Image, but went to Marvel.
Right.
And that's why you got. But Ultimate Spider-Man, Luke Cage came back. You got Alias. You got all that stuff, man. Because they didn't know what to do. They were like, yeah, whatever, we don't care. It's like, what if we do a brand new Spider-Man book where nobody has to read anything before? And they're like, yeah, we don't care. Okay, what about if we do a brand new X-Men book? Yeah, we don't care. Doesn't matter. Whatever. And that's that kind of dark time when they were almost broke. They were very close to being done. But I don't know what kind of urban legend that would qualify as being, if it was the urban legend that they were not broke, or if it was the urban legend that, you know, if you walk in and there's a bunch of furniture in the middle of the room, like, you know, like your wife just kicked you out for blaming her for you not collecting comics for 20 years, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
True first.
Little callback there. Anyway, any others?
But
you got?
that does seem to be kind of a reoccurring thing, though. I mean,
Your wife getting mad at you?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, they're lucky they can't see me. Like, I'm on the other side of the camera.
But
She's not even here. This is her anger floating.
Right.
I mean, how many
Both, yeah.
times, including right now, has it been to the point where people are like, I don't know if Marvel's going to survive. I don't know if these, because we know the movies aren't ever going anywhere. That's got such a broad appeal that the movies are going to be around forever.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Oh, I think so.
Well, man, I mean, I think comic book movies are going to be. I almost think they're like the new slasher movies, you know, because you got late 70s to late 80s, you know, and you had a good 10 years. It was just a slasher boom, you know,
Right.
And it was huge. Then you started to see a little bit of a decline with those horror movies. Then you needed something, you know, like Scream to bring it back in a new way. But the whole time, you know, I mean, all through the 90s, you know, you're still getting sequels, you're still getting this, you're still getting that. They're making money, but their money's declining a little bit. And you're starting to see a little bit of that with comic movies. I just think it's a bigger stretch, just like the 90s boom and bust.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's a longer stretch of these things working because of, you know, internet and eBay and auction sites and streaming stuff and whatever. You know, I mean, I feel like they're going to go for another several years really strong. But you're already starting to see a little drop off with that stuff. You know, it used to be every single comic book movie was a blockbuster.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you just see like everything. It was like, oh my god, man, this is, even if it wasn't that good of a movie, like Dark Knight Rises, it still made a ton of money. You know, and that was the strength of previous movies. But, you know, now you see like Superman, Batman, which didn't do well.
Right.
It made a lot of money.
It was Martha's fault.
Technically, it's Martha's
It's
fault.
Martha's fault.
Would you hear that? It's you know, I mean, Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't that have been great if she was
She had popped up.
just in the background?
I got
during
some
that big
butter
Martha
for you,
fight.
boys.
Some butter. Oh, yeah. That's the most uncomfortable Martha Stewart impression I've ever. I mean, I don't know if I like it or not. I don't know, but anyway, that's another discussion for off the air. But yeah, you know, I feel like that's kind of going to be a thing. And I think that it's going to take a dip, and I think that we're going to see less and less. You know, you can't keep up this level.
Well, we're
and this production.
already seeing less and less.
Yeah.
Like you can't. I mean, I don't really consider the Disney Plus TV stuff, the serialized formats. I don't really consider that as being a cinematic event like the Avengers.
And well, what other cinematic events are there anymore?
That's very true. We've been going to a lot of movies lately, and there's like we went to see, what did we go see the other day? I can't even remember. It was a great show. I enjoyed it.
I can tell.
Oh, it's Elvis. So we went to see Elvis on opening weekend, and it's a great show.
Oh yeah,
And it was maybe 25% full
yeah.
on opening weekend.
5 years ago, that would have been
Yeah,
packed.
it would have been packed. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the same for Jurassic World Dominion, everything we've been to see lately.
yeah,
I guess it's to the point where you can go. When we went to see Doctor Strange the second time, like we went with you on the opening, and that was Wednesday. We went Friday at a early evening show, and it was about a quarter full
yeah,
for a Doctor Strange movie.
yeah.
So yeah, that doesn't hold the punch that it once did,
Right. And I'm wondering if maybe the Scream comparison is maybe Invincible and The Boys and things like that. You know, because it is a new thing. It started to go down a little bit. You know, the Wonder Woman sequel I thought was awful. got bad reviews. Made no money. Of course, it was during the pandemic, but it still
Right.
made no money. And you've got the Suicide Squad, which made some money, but I don't think that even made as much as the first Suicide Squad, did it?
I don't think so.
I don't think it did. And the movie was 10 times
It
better.
was a lot better.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's because of a crappy previous movie or what it was. But I feel like, again, 5 years ago, and if you were going to say, oh, okay, well, the Suicide Squad movie wasn't great, but we got James Gunn to do another one. And we're kind of redoing everything. We're getting this back, we're getting a fresh start. That thing we packed every weekend for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the streaming and the more violent kind of stuff, again, Invincible, The Boys, things like that, because it's a reimagining of superhero stuff, and it's kind of a reboot of what we know, kind of like Scream was with slasher movies. And I'm wondering if that is maybe that thing that's going to either bring it back or change it entirely.
No, I think that's very valid. I mean, I enjoy.
Thank you.
You need my validation.
I do.
Validated.
Yes, I need a validation. It costs a lot of money to park these days.
It does. I do
That's
enjoy. I really did
That's
enjoy
helpful.
Moon Knight. I thought Moon Knight was fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm really
Agree to
enjoying.
disagree.
I'm really enjoying Miss Marvel.
Still haven't friggin' seen
Miss
it.
Marvel. Now that I really truly understand what it is, and going in with that mindset, I really enjoy that. As much as I enjoy those shows, I think, and I think people do enjoy them. If you look at it, The Boys are certainly doing much better over on Amazon, and Umbrella Academy is doing much better.
Yeah.
And Invincible's doing a hell of a lot better than all of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you might be on to something there for sure.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I've been on this earth long enough that I've got a lot of experience reading comics, looking at comic stuff, looking at comic industry, looking at horror stuff, looking at and then all this stuff, it's so parallel.
Right.
When you really look at the big picture of everything, very parallel. You can look at that with music. I mean, even if you look at it, with music, 80s, 70s and 80s rock and metal and hard rock and stuff like that, completely different. Took a serious nosedive, and then it took some reimagination and some reinvigoration and kind of repurposing of that whole thing to bring it back. Then you had black metal and you had death metal and you had the more extreme stuff like that, and then that brought all that back because it did the Scream thing or the Boys thing or whatever. And it kind of reinvented that stuff, and then all of a sudden the old stuff comes back and is big again.
Yeah. But I don't see. I mean, and we also live in a world now where I don't know how many times I was telling people how great Doctor Strange was, and they're like, I take your word for it, but I'm still not going to see it in the movie theater. I'll watch it next week or next month on Disney Plus.
Right. Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with it, I think.
Streaming has
So
really
they
affected
really have to look at how that market affects. And it's like the Scarlett Johansson thing. She sues Disney because they released Black Widow directly onto streaming.
Yeah.
So that,
Which I'm sorry, I still
I mean,
don't agree with. I don't agree with the lawsuit.
I definitely see where she's coming. I see where Bill Nye's coming from. They created these things without that component in mind. That didn't exist.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's got to be some sort of fair compensation, especially.
I think 20 million is pretty fair. Isn't that what she made?
I have no idea.
That's pretty fair compensation.
But I mean, when
that
she
plus
makes-
the residuals from the Iron Man and the Avengers movies.
But
I
when
think
you're
that's pretty fair.
making your money based on ticket sales at the movie theater, and then the people that make that movie decide, well, to circumvent that, we're just going to put it out on our streaming service. There's got to be compensation there because they're cutting you
I don't
out
know if
over
I
here.
agree.
To
I don't
just
know if I agree
automatically
with
put you
that,
here.
man, because they're not making any money on it either.
Well, they're making tons of money on it.
Well, they're making money on the streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how much money?
But they're
how
not
many?
making any ticket money, and it's going to go to streaming anyway.
But how many more subscribers do they get? Because they can put Black Widow on Disney Plus, and they can put Doctor Strange on Disney Plus.
You know, I don't think Black Widow got him that many subscribers.
It should have. It was a great movie.
I thought it was a great spy movie.
It was fantastic.
You know, I really liked it. But, you know, and most people I talked to were like, yeah, okay, whatever. Because they were so burned out on it's coming out this year. No, it's coming out next year. No, it's coming out next year. No, it's coming out next year. You
Well,
know?
and that's,
And they're like, well, she's dead. Who cares?
I mean,
The character's dead.
that's
Nobody,
the-
you know.
that's the pandemic effect.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And
you know,
that,
and
so
that,
nobody can be blamed for that part of it, I
yeah,
think.
you know, and I mean, you know, and I also think that we need to keep things like that in perspective, you know, and so does she. You know,
Right.
I mean, and I can't sue somebody because I didn't make as much money as I thought I would. I can't sue Diamond for not shipping me stuff for 2 months because of a pandemic.
You should be able to. You should be able to sue Diamond for anything you want.
Okay, in theory, yeah.
As a frustrated
yeah.
collector,
Okay, yeah, in theory, yes. You know, but I mean, you know, and in reality, you know, I mean, it's not their fault. It's a thing that happens, you know, and sometimes that happens, and I just can't feel bad because I think she did make like 20 million for that
It
movie,
is-
man.
it
That's
is
more
really
money than
hard.
we're ever gonna see, and I can't
Yeah.
cry over her only making 20 million plus the
Yeah.
marketing stuff, plus the action figures with her likeness, plus the t-shirts with her likeness, plus the everything else. You
it
know,
is
and
really
I
hard
can't
to sympathize with.
I can't cry over
Something
that,
like that.
man. You know,
That's
plus how many millions is she making every month
Right.
from the Avengers movies and
But-
the Iron Man movies and the everything else movies?
I mean, that also speaks to, you know, do you then go back and say, okay, Annette Funicello's estate will now get paid residuals because they're going to use her and show her reruns of Mickey Mouse Club on Disney Plus. I
No.
mean, where do you draw the line?
I mean, I don't think you should. She had already been paid for that.
Under the agreement,
You know,
that
under the agreement that there
encompassed the
was at
technology
that
of the
point,
time.
Alan Moore. So shut up. I mean, you know, it is. It's the Alan Moore effect.
True.
You know, then you agreed to this.
Right.
This is what you agreed to, and you know, then you signed the contract. Okay,
Right.
you were, you know, same with, as much as I hate to say it, same with Jack Kirby. You signed a contract. You were work for
Right.
hire. Okay. The stuff that, you know, I mean, I think it's, you know, honest, and I don't like to side with corporations, you know, and I don't, that's not me because I own a small business, you know what I mean? But, I mean, I don't feel, I think it's really generous that Marvel pays the Kirby estate when they use things that he created. They pay the Stan Lee estate when they use things that he
Right.
created. You know, I mean, I've got friends that created some of these characters, and
Yeah.
and they got, you know, I mean, they got screwed on this stuff, but that's what they were doing at the time. They weren't the rock stars. They weren't Todd McFarlane. You're not going to get paid $1 million a month to draw Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's, I mean, that goes all the way back to Siegel and Schuster. I mean, they created Superman. So,
Yep. Did they own Superman?
no.
Then, oh well.
Right. And I
mean,
think
you
it's
know,
really cool that
I mean,
As
that
much
sounds
as-
terrible and cold to say, but oh well, it's
It-
not yours.
as much as I dislike the person, Alexander Salkind, like he was instrumental in giving them credit for creating that character. And I think at that point, I mean, cash in on the fact that yes, we created Superman. Now I can say, oh, and I created Superman. It's well known. Let me cash in on that now, moving forward.
And now, okay, now if they say, you know, Superman created by Siegel and Schuster, if they use their names, I think that's a producer's credit. They need to be paid.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, and if they're going to put their names on there, because essentially, you know, Iron Man created by, you know, Larry Lieber and Don Heck? No, it wasn't Don Heck. But anyway, you know, so I mean, you got, was that Kirby?
Iron Man?
Yeah. It was Stanley's
Kirby
brother.
did the art, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, or Spider-Man created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and you're using their names to sell that at this point.
Right.
And
Yeah,
if you're using
yeah.
their names to sell it, okay, then yeah, all right, I get that. I get them getting some compensation with that. And you could go back all the way back around and say, well, you're using Scarlett Johansson's name to sell the Black Widow movie. Yeah, but she's already been paid.
Yeah, but she didn't create the Black Widow either.
Right. God, I want to.
And
I
I
want a bagel
never-
so bad.
Bagel sounds pretty
That
good.
sounds really good.
Yeah, I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah.
Wrap this crap up.
Yeah. All right, so
We have been given the
producer
the signal
saying
from
it's
the
time to
producer.
wrap up doing one of these deals. All right, so we're going to be back next week. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And ring the bell. We'll see you next time, traders.